Today's video we'll be talking about the 5 commandments you need to religiously follow to keep ensuring that you progress in the gym. And these 5 commandments or tips that you need to follow aren't based or solely focused on one group. It's universal, so whether you're a beginner who's just about to start in the gym or whether you've been advanced and training for a long period of time, all these tips will be applicable to everyone. But I'll be solely focusing more on the beginner people and how these tips can be more practically or like how to make practical use of the tips. Before we start the tips, you gotta understand that training and nutrition both play an equal part when it comes to progressing and building muscle. Because just eating clean and healthy will not create any muscle. I mean, if you think about it, if you're just to eat like all clean food throughout the day but never actually work out, your body would never need to build muscle because it's never receiving the stimulus to actually build the muscle. On the same, if you were to train really hard but never actually eat healthy and fuel your workouts, you would soon realize that even building muscle, even by providing the stimulus, would not go so far. That's why both nutrition and training play an equal part when it comes to muscle building. 5 commandments, 2 are about nutrition, 2 about training. So they're like pillars. So you've got 2 over here and then 2 over here, and you've got one foundation commandment which holds everything together. The first commandment, which is all about calories. If you're new to lifting or you're just getting into fitness, you may have heard the term calories fly around all the time. People say track your calories or eat above your calories or below your calories. Basically, calories are an energy unit. So it calculates, or calories are basically how much you're taking into your body or how much you're eating in a day. Throughout the day, your expenditure, whether that be physical activity or just moving around, waking up, going to school, that all burns calories. So you have a balance where you've got your calories in versus calories out, and the balance will basically dictate what state your body will be in. Now, if you're skinny or skinny fat, what I would recommend is to bulk. And before you go on to the dirty bulk, which a lot of people do, in my previous video I explained why you should thoroughly consider all the negatives and pros and cons of dirty bulking and why I think a more lean bulking approach is better. If you are skinny fat or skinny or just simply wanting to put on mass, bulking is the best and fastest way to actually build muscle. This is because when you're in a bulk, so you're giving more calories in, or you're putting more calories in than you're actually exerting out. So it's like you're in a surplus of calories. Your body has more resources from the calories to fuel workouts and fuel muscle building. This is why to build muscle the fastest, a bulk is the best way, or giving you the most chances of building muscle the fastest. The way to structure your bulk would be to just eat in a 10% surplus of what you originally eat. Not a crazy 200, 300 calorie, well, maybe possibly 200, 300, but not something like 600, 700 calorie surplus or even 1,000. You need to first find your calorie maintenance, which I'll be explaining a bit later after I talk about the next part. And from what your calorie maintenance is, you simply add 10% to that. On the contrary, if you're starting out in the gym but you actually want to lose fat because you feel you're overweight, the best way to do this would be to be in a calorie deficit. Similar to a bulk, a calorie deficit, which is a cut, is when you're in a net deficit instead of a surplus. So basically your expenditure of calories is greater than your intake of calories. So the swing goes this way this time. To do this, I would simply recommend taking 500 calories out of what you currently eat. The rule is if you reduce your calories by 500 every day, so in a week, Monday to Sunday, every day you eat 500 calories less, that whole week, so 500 times 7, you'll be eating 3,500 calories less, and that will equate to a pound lost every week. Now, for people who are first getting into the gym and who have never been in a calorie deficit, sometimes 500 may be a bit too much. So you may even want to start off on the lower end and start off with 300 calorie deficit. So once again, finding your calorie maintenance and then subtracting 300 calories and continuing that on. Now, how do you find your calorie maintenance? Because for both for bulking and cutting, you do need to know what you're originally eating. Now, I do not recommend always tracking your calories, but when you're initially getting into lifting, you need to have an understanding of how much you're eating whenever you take a scoop of something, how many calories there are, just to roughly estimate when you're on the fly in the future. Whether this estimation process or how long it takes will really depend on you and how comfortable you become with being able to estimate. So for some people, they may be able to track for a couple of weeks and have a good idea of how much they're eating on a regular basis, and whenever they go out, they can roughly guess how many calories are in a meal. But for others, it may take a couple months, and that's up to you. But regardless of how long it takes, in the end, you really want to move away from tracking your calories and just using it as a guide. The way to track your calories though would be, for what I would recommend is for the next 2 weeks, use an app like MyFitnessPal, which is a very good one. You can use, it's free on your phone, so just download it on the App Store or Google Play Store, or even on your laptop. You can just type up any food and basically you log what you eat, and it calculates the calories and everything. And after that, you can see your daily protein, carbs, all your macronutrients, which are your proteins, your carbs, and your fats, and you can also see your total calories. And do this every day for 2 weeks, and at the end of every week, you can average out all the calories. So Monday you ate, let's just say you went out and ate something, so you ate a bit more. Tuesday you stayed home, so you ate a bit less. And throughout the whole week, add up all your calories, so from Monday to Sunday, and then divide it by 7, and that's your average weekly calories. Do that for another week just to see what you roughly eat. Pillar 2. This tip or commandment is also about nutrition. From the previous commandment, we learned about calories and the importance of calories. But to make up your calories, you need to eat a variety of foods. And you need to know which ones to eat to help you build muscle the most efficiently, or at least fuel your workouts, so your workouts build a high quality and build muscle most efficiently. When it comes to what you should eat, there are 3 main categories, and these are called macronutrients, which will be commandment number 2. So the 3 macronutrients are proteins, carbs, and fats. Each one has their own individual role, and that's why each one is important in its own manner. Basically what I'm saying is to eat a variety of foods, whether that be veggies, your fruits, your lean proteins, healthy fats, and complex carbs. Yes, I know it sounds very boring, and you've probably heard it a lot of times, but that doesn't mean it's lost its importance, because it's very important to eat a varied diet, or a diet full with variety. So with protein, a lot of people ask, how much should I be eating? If I was to give one simple answer, it would be a gram of protein per pound of body weight, regardless of whether you're cutting or bulking. This is quite an easy figure to hit, and it doesn't mean you have to hit exactly that amount every day. So for example, if you weigh 170 pounds, doesn't mean you only should hit 170. It's okay to go a bit lower or higher, but roughly aim to hit around that amount. When you're bulking though, and if you find it difficult to get all your meals in because you're constantly full, then reducing your protein target to 0.7 grams per pound of body weight would make it easier to get your protein in. This is because protein is the most satiating nutrient, which means it makes you the most full, and eating less of it would make you less full, which would help you to eat more. The same applies when you're cutting. If you're struggling and you're always feeling hungry, then increasing your protein from a gram per pound of body weight to slightly higher may help you to keep you more full. As for what protein you should be eating, here's a list of a couple of the sources of protein you can choose from. This isn't all the sources listed, but this should give you a rough guide as to which ones you can choose. Before I continue forward, I just want to explain the importance of protein. The dry section of your muscle is mainly made up of protein. So protein is important when it comes to building muscle and preserving muscle. Also, aim to have 2 servings of fruit and veggies every day. So that's 2 servings of fruit and 2 servings of veggies. This is actually very easy if you think about it. Choose the fruits and veggies that you like and add them to a couple of the meals. So for example, during breakfast, if you're making a shake, just add banana to the shake and that will be 1 serving of fruit. When it comes to carbs, eating plenty of carbs is important, and especially the complex ones. Carbs aren't bad. They're very important because they are the macronutrient which fuels your workout and ensure that your workouts are the most productive they can be. If you skip on carbs because you think they're bad, then most likely your workout, you won't have enough energy to fuel your workouts. This is why eating a variety of complex carbs are very important. Here are a list of a couple examples of complex carbs. When you're bulking though, sometimes getting all those complex carbs or simply just sticking to complex carbs is very difficult because you tend to feel much more full. In that case, choosing simple carbs or adding a mixture of both makes it easier to hit your goals. And here are a couple examples of simple carbs. Finally, fats. Fats are important because they keep your hormones in regulation and in check. Eating too little will disrupt your hormone and homeostasis. So ensuring that you get a good adequate amount of fats is important. Here are a couple examples of some healthy fats you can choose from. Moving on to the training commandments. The previous 2 were about nutrition, but now we'll be talking about the training aspect because both are equally important. The first commandment of training is doing enough hard training or doing enough work to ensure you're gaining muscle. Now this may sound very simple, but when you're first beginning, it's very easy to do too little or too much in the gym, both which will cause issues and most likely will be preventing you from building muscle the fastest. When it comes to training in the gym, you need to understand a couple concepts. The first one being volume. Volume just refers to the total sets per week you're doing for each muscle group. So basically, if you were to, on Monday, you were to do chest for 3 sets, on Wednesday, you were doing chest for 3 sets again, and on Friday, you did chest for 3 sets again, then for the week, which went from Monday to Sunday, you did a total of 9 sets of chest for that week. That's basically what volume is. But when you count volume, you count your working sets, which means not your warm-up sets or secondary muscle groups. To explain what I mean, let's take the bench press. So on Monday, when you came to the gym to do 3 sets of bench press, prior to doing your 3 sets, let's just say you would needed to warm up your chest muscles. So you did 2 sets without the bar and then another 2 sets with half the actual weight you were going to use. In that case, you did 4 warm-up sets prior to your actual sets. So those 4 prior sets, you do not consider them at all. You only consider the 3 working sets which you did after your warm-ups. Those 3 sets you would use to calculate your volume for the entire week. Also, when you're doing bench press, you're using all your pushing muscles. Pushing muscles include your chest, which is the main muscle, and then you've also got your triceps and your front delts. Your triceps and your front delts in the bench press are what you call your secondary muscles, or the second muscle group being hit, but not the primary one, which is your chest. When you're calculating volume, for any muscle group that is a second muscle group for an exercise, so in the bench press, your triceps and your front delts, you don't include that for your volume. So going back to the example on Monday, if you were to do 3 sets of bench, those 3 sets, your chest would have 3 sets, but your triceps would have 0, unless you did any direct tricep work afterwards. So let's just say at the end of the session, you did some skull crushes or tricep extensions. In that case, those would contribute to your tricep volume. So for volume, for each muscle group, each one has a separate volume. And to calculate each muscle group's volume, you need to add up all the working sets you did for that week. When you're first starting in the gym, aim for around 10 sets per muscle group per week. But this isn't a thumb rule. It can vary. So sometimes it can be 8 sets, sometimes it can be 12 sets depending on the program. But don't go any higher and try to stay at around 10 when you first start off in the gym. 10 sets is also not universal to each muscle group. When you first start in the gym, you'll have a lot of soreness and pain because your muscles aren't used to doing that much work. And some muscle groups will have much more pain, such as your hamstrings. Because of that, doing 10 sets of hamstrings when you first start in the gym is very hard. So some muscle groups will have a lower amount of volume you can do when you first start, whereas other groups will have higher. The highest you should aim for at the beginning is 10. Right, so the second concept is frequency. And frequency is basically organizing your volume. So if you think about it, your volume is the total number of sets you're doing per week. And frequency is basically how many times a week are you doing those sets. So taking the example of if you were to train 10 sets of chest per week, frequency is basically how many times are you hitting chest in the gym per week. You may be hitting your chest twice a week, which means for each session you would have to do five sets. So 5 sets on Monday and then 5 sets on Friday to give you your total 10 sets. So your volume stays the same, but your frequency would be 2. Let's just change the example and instead you're doing 12 sets now. Using the same example and same frequency, if you're doing chest twice a week, then you would do 6 sets of chest on your first day and 6 sets on the following day. If your frequency was up to 3 times a week, then each time you came to the gym, let's say Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, then the total sets per session would be 4, because 3 days times 4 sets each day would be 12 sets. If your frequency was to be 4 times a week, how many sets of chest you're doing per session would become 3, so on and so forth. You just want to make sure that your frequency stays between 2 to 4. So any program, usually the push-pull legs, upper body, upper lower, or push-pull legs, upper lower, some hybrid between the two, even full body. Usually these programs do have each muscle group hit between 2 to 4 times, so that's already good. You don't want to do programs which fall on either extreme. So let's just say bro split, which is chest on Monday and like shoulders on Tuesday, back on Wednesday, one muscle group every day. And the reason being is, if you think about it, if you did all your sets in one day, you would cause so much soreness and disruption to that muscle only that it would take very long to recover. Not only would the recovery for that muscle be very long, you would also impede your recovery and your ability to perform for other muscle groups on the consecutive days or the days after. So on Monday, if you were to do all your chest work, on Tuesday, whatever muscle group you were going to do, your body would be aching so much from training all your chest on Monday that it would have a very hard time productively working any other muscle groups the following days. Also, if you were to do all your chest work in one day, think about it. The second half of your workout would become so long and tedious that most of it would be junk volume. Junk volume basically means where you're doing work, but you're not really feeling your muscle. So if you were to do an exercise that was intended for your chest, let's say bench press, but you had so many sets of bench press, the last couple of sets that you're doing, you couldn't feel your pecs at all. You were just moving your hands and just going through the movement without actually feeling your muscle. Taken to the other extreme, if your frequency was 6 times a week, so you're doing chest 6 times a week, and let's just say your volume was 12 sets per week. So since you trained chest 6 times, each time you train chest, you would only do 2 sets. You'd spend more time actually warming up and moving between exercises than actually doing the physical exercise and the working sets because there's so little. You're better off spending more time just like adding all the 2 sets, 2 sets, 2 sets along 6 days together into 3 to 4 days, let's just say, and spend the remaining time doing something else. The final concept is intensity. Now, intensity doesn't refer to how hardcore the set was or like how difficult you felt or how heavy you felt the bar was. It isn't a subjective measure actually. That intensity is something we just described. But when it comes to fitness or working out, intensity refers to your percentage of your 1 rep max. So basically what that means is your 1 rep max is for any movement. So if it was the bench press, how much weight can you do maximum for 1 rep, like full proper, without needing assistance or failing the rep. And percentage refers to the percentage of your 1 rep max weight. Let's just say your bench 1 rep max was 100 kilos. If you were to do 5 reps with 80 kilos, then the percentage of your 1 rep max, so 80 kilos is 80% of 100, which basically means the intensity for that set was 80% of your 1 rep max, which means for that set of squat, you are able to do 5 reps at your 80% 1 rep max. Now this sounds very complicated, and when you first start off in the gym, it's very unlikely that you straight off be practicing or doing your 1 rep maxes when you still haven't learned the technique. Whether you have a lifter who's been training for 1 year or a very advanced lifter, when you look at their percentage 1 rep max, so let's say the advanced lifter, he's doing 80% of his 1 rep max, which is much higher to a lifter who's been lifting for only 1 year. Yet when they do the 80% 1 rep max, so that's relative to their 1 rep max, they're able to do similar number of reps. This is why when you're first beginning, instead of focusing on the percentage, it's better off to focus on the rep ranges. So when you're first starting off lifting, make sure you look at the rep ranges the program says. When it comes to compound exercises, so compound exercises are basically exercises which recruit many muscle groups. So when you've got the bench again, you've got your chest, which is your primary mover, and you've also got your front delts and your triceps. So that's hitting 3 muscle groups, which means it's a compound movement. If you were to, on the other hand, do something like a cable fly, which just hits your chest, that's an isolation movement. So for all compound movements, you want to make sure the rep ranges you're doing are between 5 to 10. Don't go any heavier because then it's very hard to learn the technique and your technique will break down. And going any higher than 10 reps makes it very difficult and more like cardio because you got to stabilize most of the time since they're more free weight barbell movements. For isolation movements though, going anywhere between 10 to 20 reps is a good idea. But when you're first learning technique, staying around 10 to 15 reps would be a better idea. Commandment number 4, progressive overload. This is a very common term which you're going to have to properly understand when it comes to lifting because it's very important. Progressive overload, so there are 2 components. You've got the progression part and the overload. In the previous commandment, we talked about overloading, which was not doing too much work and not doing too little work. So getting the right amount of work, which was overloading your muscles most efficiently and building muscle most efficiently. When it comes to the progressive part, this basically means increasing over time. If you think about it, when you first come into the gym and do an exercise for a certain amount of weight, reps and sets, your body needs to adapt to that because it's never been presented that stimulus and stress on your muscles. So in order to adapt to it and be more prepared and equipped to do the same thing next time, it builds muscle. If you were to do the same reps, weight and sets every single time you went into the gym, so not increasing something in some form, shape or manner, if you were to keep the same thing all the time, your body wouldn't need to adapt any further. It's adapted the first time And why should it adapt even more when the stimulus and stress is the same? This is why if you want to continue building muscle, which is basically your body adapting, you need to always increase the stimulus. So the more stimulus you provide, the more your body adapts. And over time, you increase the stimulus so your body adapts even more and more. There are many ways to progressive overload, but as a beginner, the main one you want to be focusing on is weight, and then secondary is reps. But first, starting off with weight, whatever program you first initially start off with, every time you come into the gym, the next time you do that same exercise, you want to increase the weight in the next increment. So if your gym has small 1.25 kilo plates on either side of the barbell, today when you came into the gym, you squatted 50 kilos for 5 reps. Tomorrow or the following day when you come into the gym, put on 1.25 kilo plates on both sides, so you increase your total weight by 2.5 kilos. And that way, each time you come into the gym, you're increasing. And so you're giving your body a need to adapt even more. After a while, you won't be able to increase your weight as quick as you were before. You won't be able to do it from session to session. When that starts happening, you're going to have to use more complicated progression approaches. For example, instead of doing an exercise for only 5 reps and increasing the weight, you may keep the weight the same, go from 5 reps, next session do 6 reps, the following session do 7, and then maybe 8. And once you get to 8 reps with the same weight, you bring the reps back down to 5, but you increase the weight this time. There comes a time in the gym where you're continuously progressing, and the buildup of stress over time has reached your muscles and your body, and your body isn't able to recover from the fatigue and stress you're constantly generating. This is when you need to implement what is called a deload. Deload basically means your load and you're reducing it, so deloading it. When you're first beginning in the gym or as a beginner, the easiest way to deload is whatever weight you were meant to do for that day, that session, just reduce it by 10%. So do 90% of what you were meant to do and then keep increasing from there. But as you get more advanced, you might have to use more advanced strategies, such as taking a week off where you do half the sets, half the weight, and half the reps, or something like that. Before I move to the 5th commandment, the foundation, I want to quickly summarize what we've talked about. So the first commandment was the pillar about calories. Calories dictate what state your body is in, and if you want to bulk or cut, you're going to have to adjust your calories. So the second commandment was where you're getting those calories from, your macronutrients. So eating a variety of foods, proteins, complex carbs, fruit, veg, healthy fats, and just a variety in general. The third pillar was the training side, which was talking about doing just enough work, not too much and not too little. So doing enough volume, which was your total sets per week for each muscle, and then dividing that accordingly between 2 to 4 times a week, which was your frequency, and then finally your rep ranges. So not going too low in rep ranges and not going too high, which was your intensity. After being able to program the amount of work you needed to do, there was also the 4th pillar, which was progression, progressive overload. So progressing either weight, reps, or even sets, some form, shape, or manner over time. Now the final commandment is adherence. Regardless of whether you're doing all 4 of these pillars, if you're only training once a week, eating healthy the other day of the week, and not training at all or eating healthy for the remainder of the week, you're not going to see gains, because you need to be consistent to ensure that muscle gain happens. This is because muscle building is a very slow process that happens over time, and without consistency, nothing will happen just with one amazing workout or one day of sticking to healthy foods. To help build adherence and consistency in both your training and also your nutrition, so what you eat, I have a framework called the 3 F's. The first F stands for fun. Now, when it comes to training, when you're first starting off in the gym, you're most likely not going to know what to do. So in that case, you're probably going to have to use a program. As you spend more time in the gym, you'll start liking to do things more than others. For example, you may like to do front squats more than back squats, or you may like to use barbells instead of dumbbells when it comes to doing chest pushing exercises. So what I'm trying to say is, don't just follow one standard program. Yes, when you're first beginning, you have no idea, and it definitely makes sense to use a program. But as you progress further and further into gym, you'll start knowing what you like to do. And instead of following one optimal program, which ensures that you build the most muscle, doing and choosing exercises that you like to do will make workouts more fun for you. And if workouts are more fun for you, even when you're not feeling even when you're not feeling like you want to work out, or you have a lack of motivation, you'll still be able to work out because you enjoy what you're doing. When it comes to eating, making foods fun, you could use a strategy like the 90-10 trick. Yes, you should be eating healthy, but restricting yourself to eating only the healthy foods and not treating yourself once in a while causes a lot of psychological restriction. You build up a craving, which at any time can just burst and you end up rebounding crazy. So the 90-10 rule is, you spend 90% of your food, or it could be even 80-20, where you spend the majority of food eating the more healthier foods, or foods that you know will help fuel and recover your workouts. And you spend the rest, the 10-20%, eating all junk or treats that you enjoy. This way you reward yourself when you've done the hard work and when you know you've put in the effort. And this makes not only your workouts more fun, but you look forward to eating as well. The next F is feasible. So everything has to be realistic. When it comes to training and following all these programs on YouTube that are especially built by fitness influencers, you need to understand that fitness influencers spend their whole day doing fitness, like in the gym or something related to their body and gym training, dieting. So they have all the time in the world to spend hours in the gym. Whereas everyone else in the world, they have other commitments. So you've got school or extracurricular activities, spending time outside. Your whole life doesn't revolve around the gym. So you can't possibly expect to do that optimal program, which you have to spend 3 hours in the gym doing this, that, and whatever, everything included in one. Because sometimes your time schedule only allows for 1 hour in the gym. This means you got to understand that to be realistic and to continue in the gym, you should do programs which are much more realistic and feasible for your goals. Yes, maybe summer holidays, you have 3 hours, so you're training for the full 3-hour program that they provide, or 2-hour program, I'm not sure, whatever it is, really long, who cares. But once your school starts again, you can't be spending 3 hours, and that 3 hours that you start spending, you can only do those 3-hour workouts once a week. And let's just say if you were to do those 3-hour workouts once a week, remember from the previous points we talked about, which was frequency, where you have to hit your muscle groups 2 to 4 times, and you're probably not going to be able to do all your volumes, so all your working sets. You won't be building muscle anymore because you're only coming to the gym once a week. When it comes to the food side, being feasible and realistic means, yes, there may be a period of time that I even explained where you need to start weighing out everything just to understand how much you eat, to be able to guess immediately or like have a rough idea when someone gives you a serving or something, how many calories are in there. But after a while, you should be able to change back to eating normally and just being able to use those previous guesswork as a rough estimate. If you stick with weighing every single day, you end up micromanaging everything, and that just creates a new layer of stress, which isn't healthy. Also, having like this black and white thinking of 1 gram makes such a big difference of these foods and only those foods I'm allowed to eat brings a host of other problems associated with it as well. The final F is flexibility. So flexibility is more of a mindset which you can develop yourself. To be flexible, it means when you're working out, or sometimes when you're not able to work out because of the situation that you're in, you're very time pressed. Flexibility means understanding it's okay to miss a session, or it's okay to do only half the work this time because nothing's gonna happen if I miss a session. Also, flexibility is understanding that sometimes I can't eat the best meals or the most healthiest foods out there because I'm outside, and the situation is where I can only have such limited options. Overall, flexibility actually develops over time, and it's just being more open to things. I hope you enjoyed this video about the 4 pillars and the final foundation that you need to follow to ensure that you'll be gaining forever. If you religiously follow all 5 principles, I assure you that you'll continue to make gains. And in the next video, where I'll be talking about a whole program for beginners, complete guide on how to start, where to start, what to do, progress. So including the training, all training principles, adherence and everything into that free program.